Why is Bitcoin so slow? And why does Ethereum cost insane amounts of money to use? Well, when it comes to blockchains, size definitely matters. Block size influences everything from how long you have to wait for your transaction to go through to how much you pay when you interact with the network. It's incredibly important to understand block size when it comes to cryptocurrency, which is why I have made this beginner's video to explain the basics of block size. Hey everyone, and welcome back. This is the Part-Time Economist, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at block size, specifically the implications that block size has for processing times and fees on a cryptocurrency network. Now, as with all of my videos, this is educational and really just trying to show you how block size works on cryptocurrency blockchains. So with that being said, let's rewind just a little bit and review how a transaction is even processed with cryptocurrency. When we think of cryptocurrency transactions, they're not just processed one after the other sequentially. Rather, groups of transactions are put together, bundled into something known as a block. So a variety of different transactions are grouped together, and that block is then processed and validated all at the same time and appended to the blockchain. Now, in the past, I've made videos talking about what processing actually entails: proof of work, proof of stake, consensus mechanisms. But for the purpose of this video, just understand that transactions are grouped together, they are processed, and it's okay if we kind of just throw around processed as something that happens in the background. They're processed and then they are added to that blockchain. Now, we see a couple issues with this. And to use an analogy, let's suppose that you're trying to mail your friend a package. You get a box from the post office and maybe you put in a Christmas present, then you put in some clothes or some kind of souvenir that you found. At some point, you're simply going to run out of space in that package. The same is true for blockchains. Each block has a finite data cap. And let's suppose each transaction is 10 megabytes and your block size is 100 megabytes. Well, you can only fit in a maximum of 10 transactions. So where does this whole running out of room concept lead us? Two places: high fees and long wait times. I'll give an example of both. Let's suppose that it is rush hour, you're trying to get home from work, and there is one bus with one seat left. Now, normally this bus can hold 10 people, but there's already 9 people on it, and the normal fee is $1. So someone says, I will pay $5 to get on this bus right now. And we think, okay, this is good, I'm going to get on the bus. But then someone behind them says, I will pay $10 to get on this bus. Well, obviously, the bus driver trying to make a profit is going to prioritize the person that is paying the higher fee. The same thing applies with cryptocurrency and block sizes. Just to kind of flash back in time, I remember when I first started working in cryptocurrency towards the end of 2018 into 2019. I was doing transactions on the Ethereum network for a few cents, definitely less than $1. I would do a transaction, interact with a smart contract for the sole purpose of doing a video. And back in those days, it was cost effective. But now, with more people wanting to use the network, it can cost insane amounts of money to do anything at all with Ethereum. Which leads us to the important point. As more people want to use a cryptocurrency blockchain, remember, that block only has a fixed amount of transactions that can go in it. It simply can't hold any more. To use our post office example, we can only fit so much into that box. No matter how much we try and cram and pack, it's having fixed dimensions. The same thing with these cryptocurrency blocks. If hundreds of thousands of people are wanting their transactions in there, they're going to bid up the price. But not only is the price going up, but some people, just like in our bus example, even the person that was willing to pay 5 times the normal transaction fee, they still have to wait in line. So when more demand becomes on this cryptocurrency network, fees go up, wait times increase. So what can we do about this? Well, the simple answer seems, why don't we increase block size? Why don't we build a bigger bus? Let's get rid of that small little bus and get a double-decker bus in here. We can get everyone on that bus in one trip. And on the surface, this sounds like a fantastic idea. However, we run up into a constraint known as the blockchain trilemma. And this is something in blockchain theory which basically says you can pick two out of any three things. You can have scalability, aka speed, you can have decentralization and security, but you can't have all three at once. Why would this be the case? Well, let's again do another example. Let's suppose that I have the part-time economist blockchain and we produce one block every 10 minutes with a 1 megabyte cap. So 6 blocks an hour, 24 hours in a day, we're sitting at about 144 megabytes per day. The cool thing about this is most computers these days come with at least a 1 terabyte hard drive, so even your average customer of a standard computer can store 6,944 days or 19 years of blockchain history on their hard drive. This means that the blockchain can be very decentralized because you don't need a supercomputer or a mining rig. Even your average user can store the entire history on their computer. So there's no one single entity that has the entire history and can change it for their own benefit. Now let's flip things around. Let's suppose that the part-time economist blockchain becomes really popular. Everyone wants to use it, so I say, you know what? I don't want you all paying these high fees. I don't want you having to wait. I'm going to increase my block size to 32 megabytes. The people are happy because their transactions are processing quicker. They're getting lower fees. But here's what they don't see. The blockchain becomes much more centralized because now, again, producing 6 blocks an hour, 24 hours a day at 32 megabytes, I'm using up to 4.6 gigabytes per day, which means my 1 terabyte hard drive can only store about 217 days of transaction history. Now, with some blockchains becoming over a decade old at this point, we run into an issue here where the average user simply can't store the entire blockchain. So the only people that can are the people that invest lots of money, that get specialized hardware. So fewer and fewer people have access to the full history. It becomes less decentralized. So as with everything else in cryptocurrency, we see that there is a little bit of a trade-off. With the small blocks, let's start with the large blocks first because I think the benefit here is most immediate. The most immediate benefit is lower fees, right? Because there's more space on this bus, because there's more room in this package, we can pay a lower fee and still have our transaction processed. It makes sense. However, some people would say that there's benefits to the smaller blocks as well. For example, as we talked about, it's easier to maintain the chain, to keep the full history of the blockchain on lots of different computers, so it is more decentralized. Some people would even say that the smaller block size increases the fees, which it does, but that those fees could actually be a benefit because it forces people to prioritize their transactions, not just spam a bunch of transactions to the network and overload the network and slow the network down, but to really be judicious in what transaction do I need to put on a blockchain versus what's something that's not really well suited to a blockchain. I can just handle that with a centralized database. So it encourages people to use blockchains efficiently for the things that really need to use a blockchain for. And then lastly, think about sync time. If we're uploading a 1 megabyte block, any kind of internet connection is going to upload that pretty quickly. But the larger our block size gets, we might have to slow down the network just because we're waiting on those blocks to upload. The network might get out of sync. So benefits for both smaller blocks and larger blocks. And I don't want you to think that small blocks and big blocks are the only thing that matters, because there are other solutions and considerations as well. We see layer 2 solutions, right? So Bitcoin is notorious for being slow. They've got the Lightning network that they're working on. Ethereum, notorious for those high gas fees. They are working on various layer 2 solutions, which basically take a bunch of transactions, bundle them together, and then submit one final transaction to that settlement layer. So a couple innovative things going on. I didn't want to get too much into this video because I wanted you to understand the fundamentals. Another consideration, not every block is going to be max size. So if my part-time economist blockchain is 32 megabytes, not every block, and in fact most blocks, are not going to hit that full size. So the calculations we were doing earlier aren't a hard and fast rule. They were just to show you in theory why a bigger block size leads to such a bigger chain. So as with everything in cryptocurrency, my goal here is just to show you how things work rather than to tell you that one is better than the other. And we do see this actually playing out in real life, though, to an extent, because we've got Bitcoin, which was the original cryptocurrency, had the small block size. Then we saw exactly as we talked about in this video. People were saying it's too slow, the fees are too high. So we saw Bitcoin Cash come along, and the idea here was we'll have a big block size. Transactions will be much cheaper, and indeed, if you look at transaction fees for Bitcoin Cash, you'll see that they're virtually non-existent, very, very small transaction fees. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is a better or worse network. As always, it is up to you to choose which cryptocurrency projects, if any, you choose to partake in. My goal is always just to provide information, help you understand a little bit more of the concepts. So with that being said, if there's any crypto concepts you'd like me to cover, be sure and leave them down in the comments below. I do appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.